Hey, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Mike Zorna, and I'll be your host and guide for this session. Today, we have a former PitchIT winner and a former PitchIT coach who's going to share some insights and experiences on how to find the right product market fit in the ConnectWise ecosystem. So this is just the first of a monthly workshop we're starting, and our goal through these sessions are to inform emerging startups, MSPs with an idea or a vision of creating new product or integration on how to navigate the ConnectWise economy with these sessions on finding your product market fit, forming your dev strategy, your PM strategy, managing finances, going to market. So a lot of cool things coming up in these future sessions. So the first, this will be the first of a series, and the second Tuesday of every month we'll be having one of these sessions. So without further ado, let's introduce our former PitchIT winner and coach, Cam Shrikant from AlertOps. Cam, welcome.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for having me on today.
Absolutely. So, before we jump into the Q&A, the meat of the webinar here. Cam, can you give us a quick background on AlertOps, when you started, company size, things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So AlertOps is an alert management tool, right? So we effectively help filter, prioritize, and automate notifications and visibility across your tech stack. So from integrating your RMM, your PSA, security tools, we filter out the noise and make sure the right message gets to the right person at the right time. We've been in business as AlertOps as an organization since 2019. I joined a few months after we started, so it's been an amazing journey. Awesome to see the team grow. When I joined, I think there were about 6 or 7 people, including me, and now the team is above 40 employees, and we've grown exponentially in terms of our customer base, so it's been an awesome ride.
That's awesome. Awesome. So, before you won PitchIT 2 years ago, I believe, what were some of the challenges that you guys faced before deciding to integrate with ConnectWise?
So I think that one of the biggest challenge was finding our target market, right? We like to consider ourselves an agnostic platform, that in the sense that there's no one particular vertical or one particular use case that we cater to better than another one, or at least that was our mentality prior to kind of finding our niche. And so we didn't delve, I would argue, in enough depth into a single vertical and spread kind of our target a little bit too thin. When we found, and funnily enough, we actually found ConnectWise about a year before we even enrolled in PitchIT and became part of the event program, because we saw a natural uptick in managed service providers starting to leverage our tool, and a lot of them signed up from ConnectWise. So we definitely figured that it was worth a shot, and it definitely paid off.
Awesome. Yeah. So you became familiar with ConnectWise about 3 years ago then. And then when did you really determine your product would be viable in the ConnectWise ecosystem?
So I'd say that probably before we even joined Invent. Right, there was a substantial uptick of inbound signups. I guess something that we were doing with our digital marketing had worked effectively towards the MSP audience. And as a byproduct of that, we saw organic signups of MSPs substantially higher than we had in the past. We were wondering, what's going on here? And a lot of them specifically use ConnectWise Manage, amongst other things, but the primary integration point they wanted was with Manage. So we took a look at that, and after 20, 30, 40 customers that are leveraging the two tools in unison, we kind of doubled down and said, yes, this is definitely a market where a tool like this doesn't exist, and we can definitely drive some value, right? So we doubled down on it, and we started building more integrations with general technology and vendors that MSPs leverage, and took it from there.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. So one of the things that we've seen to be very useful within the MSP community, within our vendor community, is a business canvas. So one of the tools that you can utilize to determine if your product or your idea is viable is through the use of that business model canvas. So, at the start of your design process, if you're an MSP, someone that just works at an MSP, you've got a great idea. Using this, you can utilize it to map out your business model or products, features to see how it's going to fit in the general MSP space, or specifically within the ConnectWise ecosystem, so you can maximize your value between your customers for your own business, and it really gives you a vision and additional stakeholders' vision into what's going on. So one of the things I'll do here is share that business model canvas so everyone can see that. And from this business model canvas, I'll be sharing a link out so everyone can get a copy of this if they want to fill this out. But as you can see on the screen here, it gives you visibility into who are our key partners, what are the key activities that we need to do, some of these important things in the middle. What's your value prop? What are we actually delivering? What problems are we solving? Are we meeting the needs of our customers? And then defining, what kind of customers are we going after? How are we going to distribute? And some things within the ConnectWise ecosystem we've got for you. So key resources, we've got 10 million plus agents under management from our RMM products. 140,000 plus users. We've got an IT Nation community. We've got events. We've got user groups. Lots of different things, and then distribution models. Being able to distribute your product or services through the ConnectWise marketplace, show them off at our ConnectWise communities. And then, this bottom section here of, what are the costs? What are our revenue streams? How are we going to sell it? What's the roadmap timeline? And it really puts everything on a single page to have that visibility into, what are we doing, and be able to share that with different parts of the organization and be able to collaborate between CEO, CFO, CMO, to be able to get input and share that vision, because so many of these different items on the business model canvas interact with each other. So it's a great resource as a first step to get your idea, get a plan to paper, and ensure that you have that one pager that shows this is our value, this is how we're going to attack the market, and this is how we're going to differentiate from our competition here. So in that, I'd like to ask Cam, a couple questions about this. How did you determine your value prop? Was it immediate? Did it take a few iterations of your product to find it?
Yeah, so I think that when we talk about value prop, right, is that initial aha moment that says, hey, this is something that's useful. But unfortunately, that's not a value proposition, right? It needs to be related to the business to be effectively communicated in one way or another. So I would argue that our value proposition, even if it's using the same functionality across different size managed service providers, the ones with different tech stacks, the same functionality can drive different value in different organizations based on their own business process. So for us, while we saw that at that point we were a little bit more mature in the sense that we knew that we had something, but we hadn't kind of laid it out in a way that is tailored to the MSP community quite yet. So we definitely did use something like this, right? Even prior to PitchIT, we had a very, very similar kind of process and document that helped us put pen to paper in terms of what our strategies were, what our thoughts were. And it's beneficial because a lot of these abstract ideas have concrete action plans once you get pen to paper. So I would say that once we did, as we started writing it down and brainstorming and filling out this actual canvas, we started to define what the value propositions are and how we're going to articulate them, which I would argue is just as important as driving value itself.
Mm-hmm. Now with this, did this turn into a living document for you? Did it change quite a bit throughout the even after integrating into ConnectWise? Were you able to update something like this to share that out and make this a living, breathing document?
100%. And we did it again last week, right? It was we were with the strategy team taking a look at what we need to revisit in terms of our strategy going forward. Because as an emerging business, I would say that the most important thing to understand is you're always learning, right? From yesterday to today, you've learned something new. So your business, while maybe the staples of what makes your business viable doesn't change, but the way in which you monetize that, the way in which you go to market with it, that should be something that at bare minimum is revisited on a quarterly basis. Because we all know that tech in general, and specifically the MSP industry, is getting substantially more mature. And as a byproduct of that maturity, I think that new businesses especially need to make sure that they're up to date.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's great to hear you used a similar product to this to be able to put that to paper, and you're revisiting. I've heard quite a few different companies doing that same thing, being able to utilize this in a few different ways, even if it's maybe just a new feature of your product, to be able to use the same canvas. Hey, what is the value prop here? How are we going to differentiate between what other competitors may be doing with similar features? How are we going to use this? So it's a great piece of great utility to utilize as you go. So I think you touched on a little bit about before, and we'll go through some of the specific areas. But when you did design of your product, did you do it around what the competition hasn't done yet, or was this just a we can do this better mentality?
So when we initially developed our product, right, that was in unison with a specific customer that had a very particular need. So after that was built out and developed and we took it to market, then we started slowly adding elements that we saw were actually prevalent in competitors, or alternatively as a byproduct of customer feature requests. The product vision piece of it, I would argue, only came into play a few months after we acquired our first customer, because we knew, hey, this is a useful tool, but where do we want to go with this? And I know that we've talked about this. That's one of my favorite questions, right? Are you doing something because your competitor isn't? There's a lot of people out there that'll say, well, nobody else is doing it, why should I? Exactly, because no one else is doing it, right? And that's not to say find some piece of functionality that's obscure and no one will use that you dump into your tool to say, hey, it's a differentiator, but making sure that you stand out, identifying gaps in your competitors' products in order to make yours more mature is definitely something that we regularly do. So as a matter of fact, and I'd recommend this to all vendors, we have and pay for sandboxes for each one of our competitors, and we review those on a regular basis with every feature release. So I would highly encourage that.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you were getting your your feet off the ground with some of this, what did you really learn during that prototyping and testing phases of development?
I'd say that 80-20 rule is very important, right? Mm-hmm. Because when you're small enough and you are still fairly nimble in terms of the way that you can develop and go to market, and I'm not saying that we're not, but as you grow, you need to have standards in place. You need to be able to position yourself as an expert so that you can drive best practices to help streamline your customers' values. So when we initially started, it was a lot of, hey, customer A wants this feature, customer B wants this feature, and we quickly realized that's not a way to scale. So what we do now is we have various product vision categories for our roadmap, right? Whether it's operations based, whether it is going to be service desk based, whatever category it falls in, when a feature request comes to us, we evaluate, is this in line with our vision for the next 2 quarters? And if so, then where can we place this feature on the roadmap? So rather than putting in a hodgepodge of features because of one-off customers, following 1, the 80-20 rule, and 2, ensuring that it fits the framework of your product vision is fairly critical.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great to hear what you guys go through in that development of new features and being able to get that customer feedback, but also align to your company vision and strategy around where are we headed, where do we believe the market is going, and be able to, vision cast that forward, as well as take in some of the customer feedback. Now, in the initial stages of this, you said you were able to achieve some organic growth for your first 30 to 40 customers. How did that change after that? How did you move from that early adopter stage into the larger markets?
So I think a few different things, right? At a certain point, it comes to build, buy, or partner, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you see gaps that you want to address with your product, but realizing that it's not really a function of what your product is intended to do. So I think that partner stage is really where we started to get a little bit more mature in terms of our way to target our market, right? So partnering with ConnectWise amongst other vendors, right? Joining the marketplaces and making sure that we tout ourselves as a byproduct of that. One of the things that I would argue is very popular and rather important today are middleware tools, right? And automation tools. And the reason for that is they provide a mechanism for you to plug in the rest of your tech stack seamlessly. So from our perspective, integration was kind of at the core of development. So not only from a functionality perspective did that help us, but if we can say, hey, yeah, the top 5 ticketing tools, the top 10 RMM tools are all integrated with AlertOps, and here's how we're driving value with them. That co-marketing initiative, as well as visibility across a series of partner vendors, is definitely beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of the things I've seen in my time at ConnectWise is platform as a service type utilities, your Zapiers, Trade.ios, things like that, where, it's easy to get plugged in. You have an API, your, other product that you're using as a line of business application has an API, and you can get those things talking very quickly and quickly see value between multiple tech stacks that you're using on a day-to-day. How do I get those integrated quickly? So, having that ability and that reach through those products is a very compelling story to tell, especially as you're saying, you're trying to scale. You can't do it all in one place. So as the build by partner strategy progresses, being able to utilize those different platforms to take your product to new levels.
Mm-hmm.
So, your customer needs have certainly probably changed over time. You essentially were saying you go on a, 2 quarters looking into the future. Is there anything else you do to reevaluate your product and, market fit to suit those needs?
Yes, right. Obviously, competitor research, as I mentioned, but beyond that, we do have weekly discussions with the dev team, the product team, and operations around what features we are going to inject into the product roadmap, right? So definitely evaluating the queue that's coming from customers is important, but even beyond that, right? Even beyond your feature request queue, I think that what matters the most is your support queue. If support tickets are being created for the same item 5 times a week from 3 different customers, right? That might be an area for you to look at, right?
Mm-hmm.
The second that ease of use is compromised for functionality is an area that very few people are going to accept in terms of their vendors. And that I definitely think that evaluating what features can be created as a byproduct of your service desk and your support queue is fairly critical.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think this really speaks to the KPIs field from the business model canvas. So being able to introduce KPIs early and figure out what are we going to measure in this process. I think the one you came up with around support tickets, that's very applicable to MSP world right now. So any MSP should be using some sort of reporting tool to be able to find who are my top ticket generators. Is it a certain customer? Is it a certain line of business application? And being able to do some research on those to be able to find, on a weekly, monthly basis. Let's go through our KPIs. Is there a certain customer that may not be using our product correctly? We need to train them, essentially do customer success type activities with them to make sure that they're knowledgeable and are going to be successful utilizing our product? Or is it, maybe a certain feature of ours isn't working and we're seeing bug reports, we're seeing, it's a software, it's not going to be perfect all the time, but being able to have that visibility to, hey, we've got an uptick in you due to this specific feature in the product, and being able to get that into the right hands of QA, dev, whoever to resolve that and make that customer experience better.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, kind of moving, we've touched on all the areas, or most of the areas of the business model canvas. So, if you had to do it all again, what would you do differently, either, from a product itself or just the integration into ConnectWise? What would you do differently if you had to do it all again?
So I'd say that the biggest thing, as I mentioned, right, is making sure that you have a mature process by which you incorporate feature requests. So looking back, there are things that we've developed that might be beneficial to 10% of our user base, but just restricted to that 10%. So prioritization and where it fits in your vision is probably the big one. But beyond that, I would not say much, right? I think that especially as an emerging vendor, falling down and picking yourself back up are the best lessons that you are going to have as far as making your business a little bit more mature and bolstering it in the market. If failure is not a part of your business process, success is going to be limited. And I think that every single time we take a wrong decision, one of the benefits of being small and nimble is we can put the car in reverse and back right out of it way faster than a big company can. And so I think that our failures are really the reason for our successes.
Absolutely. If Tony Thomas was here, he would certainly echo that, that fail fast mentality. If we started in what was lab tech product management days, and failing fast was certainly the mentality of certain features we implemented into product to get that feedback and know, hey, this didn't hit the mark. We need to change it. We need to implement it in a slightly different way so that it's beneficial to ourselves and to our partner base as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how would you recommend using this business model canvas to anyone that's creating a product today? So let's say, you're talking to an MSP at IT Nation, and they've, I've got a pretty good idea. Cam, I know you were on a winning PitchIT team. What advice would you give to them today?
So I think that one, actively brainstorming with this canvas is important, right? Anything similar to this business model canvas that you're going through as a process, one person sitting down in a room in front of a laptop typing away is not going to work, right? It's really going to be a team effort, because the only way that you will have success in terms of the content in your business model canvas is if you have a team to challenge you on your ideas. Maybe you're right, but having someone play devil's advocate, having someone bring a new perspective to the table and evaluating what the pros and cons are pretty critical, right? So I think that building this is a collaborative effort. And then beyond that too, once this is built, have an idea of conversation that you can start with a potential prospect, even if it's before development, right? If you throw all this and there's 4 people in a room that think they got a great idea, but no one else in the market agrees, that's a huge problem. So before you start throwing money at development, maybe fly down to a potential prospects, take them out to dinner, show them a presentation and ask them, hey, would something like this be beneficial? And get their feedback too. I think that getting feedback from the market and assessing to a certain degree of what that viability looks like is just as important as putting pen to paper here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the goal of the business model canvas is to shorten that runway to go to market, to get all perspectives on a single piece of paper. And I think that's certainly a great tool to utilize in that process. But I think, as Cam was saying, like there's got to be a few different stakeholders in there, and getting that customer feedback immediately on what needs to be done, changed before you go to a broader market is certainly going to be very important. Awesome. All right. Do we have any questions from the chat at all? I'm in the streaming platform, so I can't quite see that right here. But I will wait a second to see if we have any questions to answer via the chat. Nothing yet. Feel free to ask any questions or reach out to me directly if you've got any questions on the business model canvas, if I can be of any assistance on that. So, we'll give another minute for any questions to come in. But, what I'd like to see any participants on this call is, I'll send out the link for the business model canvas. Fill that out. I'm more than happy to provide feedback or guidance to guide you on the right journey here. So, I think it's been a great first session. Cam, thank you for all your input and your insight into what was successful for you, how to use this utility. I think you had a lot of great points in here around getting a large group to all collaborate on this document, be able to fail fast with your first customers. I think a lot of good things came about in this call. Any other final comments or things you want to send us off with, Cam?
Yeah. So any vendors that are looking to enter the MSP space, definitely want to give a shout out to PitchIT. It is an awesome incubator platform to get you started and definitely gives you a bit of a head start by the time you finish it in terms of targeting the MSP audience. It's one, highly educational, a bunch of free marketing, and you're connected with some of the best experts in the industry. So definitely want to give a shout out to PitchIT. And if anyone has any questions around the program, business model canvas, or any questions in general, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'm more than happy to help out.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time today. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to Cam and myself, and we will get you started on that journey into creating with ConnectWise. Thanks,
awesome.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone.